Once upon a time, Tony La Russa was a trailblazer. A sharp-minded manager with a law degree and a Hall of Famer who delivered 3 World Series titles, he redefined what it meant to lead a baseball team and helped shape modern baseball. This being said, when he returned to manage the Chicago White Sox in 2021 after a decade away, the game had moved on and La Russa hadn't. What was meant to be a triumphant redemption story became a cautionary tale of nostalgia gone wrong. The White Sox didn't just bring back a legend, they resurrected a dinosaur. And in doing so, they squandered a golden opportunity, fractured their clubhouse, and set their franchise back years. La Russa's comeback wasn't just a misstep, it was a textbook example of how not to run a modern MLB team. Tony La Russa was born on October 4th, 1944, in Tampa, Florida, in the baseball-rich neighborhood of Ybor City. Growing up alongside future big leaguers like Lou Piniella, La Russa was immersed in the sport from an early age. He was signed by the Kansas City Athletics at 17 and made his debut in 1963 as a contact-hitting infielder, but a shoulder injury derailed his playing career, limiting him to a 199 batting average over 132 games across 6 seasons. His lack of on-field success didn't dim his passion for the game, instead redirecting it. For the time being, La Russa decided to transition to academia. He earned a degree in industrial management from the University of South Florida, and later a law degree from Florida State. Yet even after all that, it was the dugout, not the courtroom, that was his true calling. La Russa's managerial career began in 1979 with the Chicago White Sox. At 34, he was the youngest manager in baseball, a prodigy with a sharp intellect and hunger to prove himself. By 1983, he led the White Sox to 99 wins and a division title, earning AL Manager of the Year honors in the process. His early tenure showcased his ability to maximize talent through meticulous preparation and innovative strategies. This being said, a 1986 front office shakeup led to his dismissal, a decision owner Jerry Reinsdorf would lament for decades. Just weeks later, the Oakland Athletics hired La Russa, and a new chapter began. In Oakland, La Russa, alongside pitching coach Dave Duncan, transformed the A's into a powerhouse. From the 1988 to 1990 seasons, they won 3 straight American League pennants and the 1989 World Series, defeating the San Francisco Giants in a series interrupted by a literal earthquake. La Russa's bullpen management revolutionized the game. He turned Dennis Eckersley into a legendary closer, pioneering the one-inning save and emphasizing matchup-based pitching changes. His strategies were so distinctive that La Russaing became the phrase for meticulous bullpen management. By the time he left Oakland in 1995, he had cemented his reputation as a tactical genius. La Russa's next stop was St. Louis, where he built a dynasty. From 1996 to 2011, the Cardinals made the postseason 9 times, winning World Series titles in 2006 and 2011. Players like Albert Pujols, Chris Carpenter, Jim Edmonds, and Yadier Molina all thrived under his leadership. La Russa's approach, tracking pitch counts, optimizing lineups, and mastering the double switch, made him a feared opponent. The 2011 World Series was a dramatic 7-game victory over the Texas Rangers, highlighted by David Freese's walk-off heroics in Game 6. At 67 years old, La Russa retired, leaving behind a legacy of 2,728 wins, 3 championships, and a 2014 Hall of Fame induction. It was the perfect exit, or so it seemed.
6 years after he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame as a manager, Tony La Russa is back, where his coaching career began.
In October of 2020, Jerry Reinsdorf stunned the baseball world by bringing La Russa back to manage the White Sox. The move was personal for Reinsdorf, who saw it as a chance to right the wrong of firing La Russa in 1986. At 76 years old, La Russa became the oldest manager in baseball, tasked with leading a young, dynamic team poised for contention. The 2020 White Sox had gone 32-25 in the COVID-shortened season under Rick Renteria, reaching the playoffs for the first time since 2008. With stars like Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, Lucas Giolito, and Eloy Jimenez, the roster was brimming with potential. And Reinsdorf believed that La Russa's experience and pedigree could elevate them further. Instead, the decision ignited a slow-burning disaster. From the start, La Russa's return felt like a mismatch. Baseball had changed dramatically since his 2011 retirement, and the game was faster, more analytical, and data-driven than ever before. There was also a new generation of players who valued self-expression and camaraderie over a rigid adherence to tradition. Russa, with his old school sensibilities and authoritarian style, struggled to connect with a roster of young, diverse talent. The cultural disconnect became glaring in May of 2021 during a game against the Minnesota Twins. Yermin Mercedes, a breakout star hitting .368 at the time, launched a home run on a 3-0 pitch off a position player in a blowout. The unwritten rules of baseball frowned upon such a move, but Russa's response was startling. Instead of defending his player, he publicly criticized Mercedes, calling the homer clueless and a violation of the game's code. When the Twins retaliated by throwing at Mercedes the next day, Russa shockingly sided with the opposition, saying they were within their rights to respond. The incident set the tone for Russa's tenure. Players like Mercedes, Jimenez, and Robert, young, exuberant, and often Latin American, embraced a modern, more expressive style that clashed with Russa's rigid expectations. Mercedes, who had been a feel-good story as a 28-year-old rookie, spiraled after the criticism. Before May 18th, his splits were fantastic, but after Russa's comments, he seemed to forget how to hit. In July, he posted on Instagram that he was stepping away from baseball, and though he later returned, he never had the same success. This episode wasn't just about one player, though. It signaled to the whole clubhouse that Russa prioritized tradition over loyalty. His actions caused many of his players to feel alienated by their manager's approach. Russa's tactical decisions also grew scrutiny. On June 9th, 2022, he ordered an intentional walk to Trey Turner with a 1-2 count, a highly unconventional move. Max Muncy promptly hit a 3-run homer, turning a winnable game into a rout. Russa defended the decision, saying, "If Turner gets a hit there, I would be walking into a lake or something, because that would have been stupid." But the move baffled fans and analysts alike, who saw it as a perfect example of Russa's disconnect with modern baseball's data-driven ethos. Beat writer James Fagan of The Athletic noted, "The White Sox are playing a different brand of baseball that feels stuck in a different era, and the results are showing it." Another embarrassing moment happened in August, during a White Sox comeback victory over the Houston Astros at home. It was a fleeting moment that perfectly captured the disorganization of Russa's tenure. With the game tied in the 8th after an Eloy Jimenez 2-run double, a fan named Noah Weinstein shouted from the stands, urging Russa to pinch-run speedster Adam Engel for Jimenez. The suggestion was practical, with Engel's speed and defense being the logical choice to make in the tight game. In a viral video, Russa appeared to respond, stepping out of the dugout and signaling a timeout to make the substitution. The clip exploded on social media, fans speculating that Weinstein had directly influenced the Hall of Fame manager's decision. The next day, Russa addressed the incident with a weary smile, saying, "Make his day, tell him I heard him." He clarified that the move was already under discussion with the coaches, but for a moment, it offered comic relief in a season marred by underperformance and fan discontent. Weinstein became a local celebrity, appearing on Chicago sports radio. Yet beneath all the humor, the episode highlighted Russa's disconnect with the fan base. The viral exchange wasn't just a tactical decision, it symbolized a manager under constant scrutiny, where even a routine substitution became a public spectacle. Fans who were desperate for signs of adaptability lashed onto the idea that a random shout from the stands could sway the stubborn legend. All in all, the 2022 season was defined by inconsistency and underperformance. Despite a talented roster, the White Sox went 81-81 and missed the playoffs. Injuries to key players like Anderson, Jimenez, and Grandal didn't help, but the team's issues ran deeper. They ranked 18th in runs scored and 16th in ERA, underwhelming for a team expected to contend. Defensive miscues, poor base running, and questionable bullpen management plagued them. And in one stretch, they lost 11 of 17 games, prompting fans to chant "Fire Tony" during a June loss to the Rangers. Russa's response was, "I hear it with one ear and I see it with one eye," which only fueled the frustration. The team's identity was muddled. They weren't aggressive, nor were they fundamentally sound. Even when the offense erupted for 26 runs over 3 games in July, they went 1-2. Lucas Giolito, a cornerstone of the rotation, expressed his frustration after the poor outing. "It's difficult. I feel like we have all the talent in the world, and we are playing good baseball." The disconnect between potential and performance was palpable, and La Russa's leadership seemed to exacerbate it. La Russa's return didn't just cost wins, it eroded the team's culture. The White Sox had built momentum under Renteria, whose player-friendly approach fostered unity. La Russa's rigidity dismantled that. His public criticisms and perceived favoritism toward veteran players created tension. Jose Abreu, a respected leader, remained a steadying force, but younger players struggled to adapt. The clubhouse, once vibrant, grew fractured, and fans, already skeptical of the hire, turned hostile. Attendance at Guaranteed Rate Field dropped from 1.6 million in 2021 to 1.4 million in 2022, despite a talented roster. The bottom line was that La Russa still understood the game's mechanics, but his ability to manage a clubhouse had completely disappeared. In August of 2022, health concerns forced La Russa to step away. Interim manager Miguel Cairo took over, and the team responded with a 10-7 stretch, playing with newfound energy. The difference was striking. Players seemed looser, more aggressive, and La Russa's absence was addition by subtraction, a damning indictment of his impact. On October 3rd, 2022, Tony La Russa resigned. In a candid statement, he admitted, "I did not do my job. The experiment had failed." The front office, led by Rick Hahn, lost credibility for endorsing the hire, and Reinsdorf's decision, driven by personal loyalty rather than strategic foresight, damaged his legacy as an owner. The broader lesson was clear. Nostalgia can be a trap. The strategies and leadership style that worked in the 1980s and 2000s were ill-suited for the 2020s, and La Russa's reliance on gut instinct clashed with a game now dominated by analytics. His inability to adapt both tactically and culturally underscored the danger of prioritizing legacy over progress. Bruce Bochy, who returned to manage the Texas Rangers to a 2023 World Series title, succeeded because he embraced modern baseball while leveraging his experience. La Russa, by contrast, seemed anchored in the past. With all this being said, looking back on the tenure for White Sox fans has got to be pretty hard. The 2021 and 2022 seasons, despite their disappointments, now feel like a distant golden era compared to the franchise's current freefall. Those years, with 93 and 81 wins respectively, at least had some success, even if La Russa's mismanagement squandered their potential. Today, amid a historically abysmal stretch, posting a 41 and 121 record in 2024, and on pace for another dismal campaign in 2025, fans are yearning for the flawed contention of those seasons. Yet a compelling argument emerges that La Russa's ill-fated return was the catalyst for this downfall. His cultural disconnect fractured the clubhouse, stunted player development, and eroded fan trust, and turned a young, promising team into a downright terrible one. The ripple effects, poor morale, questionable front office decisions, and a lack of direction paved the way for the White Sox collapse, making La Russa's tenure not just a misstep, but the spark that ignited a franchise's implosion. None of this diminishes La Russa's historical greatness. He won 2,884 games, the second most in MLB history, and captured 3 World Series titles and 6 pennants. He revolutionized bullpen management, turning relievers into specialists and closers into stars, and his double-switch mastery and lineup organizations influenced a generation of managers, from Joe Madden to Dave Roberts. His induction to the Hall of Fame in 2014 was unanimous, a testament to his impact. But legacy isn't just about what you did, it's about how you finished. La Russa's return tarnished his story, turning a revered figure into a symbol of stubbornness. His tenure exposed the White Sox organizational flaws. It cost the franchise momentum, trust, and a championship window. And most damningly, it proved that even legends can overstay their welcome. Tony La Russa didn't go out with fireworks or a standing ovation. He didn't ride off into the sunset. He went out with a whimper, a cautionary tale of a great man who came back one last time and stayed too long. The game had moved on and the White Sox never needed him to return. In the end, his comeback didn't just fail, it left a once promising franchise searching for answers, and a fan base wondering what might have been.